Let me tell you about a band called Ready for the World. The first album came out in 1985. One of the big hits off that album was a pretty famous song called Oh Sheila. Ready for the World was panned by critics as being Prince wannabes, but I'm pretty confident in saying that they had a style that was completely their own. They're funky. Prince is funky for sure. One thing that Ready for the World and Prince definitely did have in common, though, was the use of a Linn drum with some pretty heavily tuned and processed drums. So a Linn drum was a drum machine that came out in the 1970s that Prince was pretty famous for using on his earliest albums. Ready for the World used it for their track Oh Sheila. I, being from Minneapolis, wanted to kind of reproduce that Minneapolis drum sound myself, just for some of my own projects. So I poked around looking for what kind of software would be available as a plugin for Reason that could emulate the Linn drums. And a lot of sources pointed me towards a product called Spark from Arturia. So I tried out the drum machine. This is Spark, a software version of some hardware that they produce that's supposed to be a pretty good copy as far as both appearance and functionality. I haven't played with the hardware version of this at all, but the software version does seem to work like hardware will work. Unfortunately, that also means it's got some weird quirks to it that you wouldn't expect to find in a modern digital audio workstation. But with a little bit of experimenting, I was able to figure out how to make it work. This is the song chain. This reproduces something that most digital audio workstation plugins would do with a MIDI track, where you'd automate the changes in patterns on your drum machine from a MIDI track, or you just have the drums laid out in MIDI and play the machine from that. This has this system where you take your drum patches and put them in these rows. With this song uses 4 different drum patterns in total. It's fairly simple in that respect. So it goes mostly between D15 and D16, and then I've got some variation thrown in the middle and end of the song where you see D13 and D14 are used. Those are just some little some fills and funky breakdowns. So the whole reason that I got the Spark 2 drum machine was to reproduce the sound of the Linn drum, to get that classic Minneapolis sound that Ready for the World was accused of ripping off from Prince. I want to copy it too, so I was primarily focused on getting that sound out of the Linn drum part of Spark. Now Spark can emulate a number of different classic drum machines, and you can tune all of the drums from each of the drum sets. But I'm working with the Linn drum here, and this is the studio where you can tweak all the settings for every drum sound that you've got. You can lower the pitch, you can add reverb, you can add delay, change the frequency, you can change the pan. A lot of different effects. You can cut off the sample at different points, so you can shorten up your cymbals or make your snare drum snappier. So it's pretty useful studio in that respect. Programming the sequencer is thankfully pretty similar to a machine that I was already used to, Roland's TR-707. Programming this in either step mode or in pattern mode works exactly like the Roland equipment, the TR-707, the TR-808, and the TR-909. Pretty much identical functionality to that. So since this was a project mainly aimed at reproducing the Minneapolis sound, I decided to start with the drum beat for Oh Sheila. And I thought maybe I'd just go find a pattern on the internet and plug that into the drum machine real quick and play it and see how it sounded. But I could not find anywhere the drum pattern for Oh Sheila, so I had to reproduce it myself. And since it was kind of a pain in the butt for me to find that, I put it together and reproduce it myself. I thought I would share with you the drum pattern for Oh Sheila so that you can quickly and easily reproduce it yourself if you want to play around with Linn drums and get that Minneapolis sound. So there's 2 different ways to look at the drum pattern. This is an overall view that's similar to the LCD screen that was on the TR-707, so you can see exactly where every drum hit is in a 16-step drum pattern. This is the first of the overall song. This is what I've got a pattern called D15, then it goes to D16, back to D15, D16, so on. with breakdowns of D13 and D14. I'll show you what those ones look like also. So this is the second part of the main drum pattern that I'm calling D16 for my purposes. That's where I've got it slotted in the Spark 2 drum machine. Now this is something that's a little bit annoying about this is the drum spots or the beats aren't numbered, so you can't see the 16 steps numbered out. You have to count them out if you're using this mode, but you can get them numbered in the other mode that I'll show you in a moment. All right, and this one's the pattern for the first drum break of the song during the beginning of the bridge. And this is the second part of the breakdown during the bridge section around middle end of the song. And just in case you have any difficulty reading, the order of the drums are at the top: bass drum, snare drum, closed hi-hat, open hi-hat, and then I don't use any of the toms. I've got some claps, heavily processed, and then for percussion here, that's a shaker sound. Oh, and of course I'm using the rim shot or side shot, which is also heavily processed. That gives that knocking sound that the song is kind of well known for. And some of Prince's music, like When the Doves Cry, use that sound quite a bit too. All right, so here's another way we can view the pattern where they're actually going to be numbered. So this shows all 16 steps, so it'll show you where each drum hit is when you select the drum. So first we'll put it in sequence mode, and right now we're selected the bass drum. So you can see the bass drum on, what am I on here, pattern. Well, this is the breakdown portion, second breakdown part of the drums. Bass drum hits on 1, 7, 9, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16. And we can check out where's the snare drum. That's on 5, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And then let's see where closed hi-hat, 3, 7, 10, 11. Open hi-hat, 1, 5, 9, and 13. And then we're going to look at claps on 5 and 13. Rim shots, there aren't any for the breakdown part, even though that's a main component of the song. Then we're going to go back up. We're going to change the pattern. The 14, this is the first breakdown part. And then back to sequencer. This is where it gets tricky. You have to keep selecting these different buttons to change the mode of the main interface, which might be standard for hardware, but it's a little clunky, I think, for a software VST plugin like this. But I figured it out, and it works well enough. So back to the sequencer on the rim shot. We got rim shots on 1 and 16 for pattern 15. Claps here are on 5 and 13. Bass drum 1, 7, and 9. Snare drum on 5 and 13. Closed hi-hat 7, 11. Open hi-hat 1, 5, 9, and 13. Then the second part of the main pattern. I'm going to go to D16. Back to sequencer. Kick drum on 1, 7, 9, 11. Snare on 5 and 13. Very typical. Closed hi-hat 3, 7, 10, 11. Open hi-hat 1, 5, 9, and 13. Claps on 5 and 13. Rim shot on 2. Oh, and I am forgetting one of the drums. I've got a cymbal going off on 1, the crash on pattern D15. So let's check out what it sounds like. So of course, after I put all the effort into putting these drum patterns together, I figured, well, I've gone this far, I might as well go ahead and finish the song. So I've sequenced Ready for the World's Oh Sheila. I'm going to play it for you. Hope you like it.